Picked up the Odyssey. We got it to the shop now so we can actually work on it with all the tools here and whatnot. It's the end of May and it's 50 degrees outside, so I'd rather work in the shop than out in the windy Iowa weather. A few things. I picked this up probably a month or so ago and I haven't even really looked at it. Threw it in the garage and it's kind of one of those things, we'll get to it when we get to it. And now we're waiting on parts for the Camaro, waiting on parts for the Blazer, waiting on parts for the Charger. But I was smart. When I first got this, I immediately just ordered all the basic stuff we're probably going to need to make it run. I have no idea if its motor's good yet. I did pull the ripcord, so we got compression, so that's promising. If we got compression, we should be able to make this thing run. Didn't have a gas tank, so we went ahead, picked up now we got a scratched gas tank. It's not new anymore. I believe these Odysseys had a fuel pump. The newer ones may have. I don't know about these older ones. I couldn't find too much information on it, but I got it anyways. It's super cheap. It's like $10 for each one of these parts, besides the fuel tank. Carburetor kit, as with any old vintage motorcycle, four-wheeler, go-kart, anything, if it's been sitting for a number of years, you might as well just get a carb rebuild kit because you're going to be going through it to get the seals, gaskets on the bowl. Sometimes they dry rot over time. If gas was sitting in the carburetor, it's probably varnished and gummed every jet and everything else up. I went ahead and picked up a new coil. I should have got a new spark plug, but didn't get one of those. Rear fenders there. Front fenders aren't cracked or anything. The tub here, it isn't cracked. The frame looks good. The roll bar is decent. The seat's missing the foam down in the bottom, but other than that, it looks like a solid, pretty much complete ripper. So I don't know why it was parked or anything like that, but we're gonna get this thing running hopefully today. And so yeah, as you can see, we got the paint lines on the tires here, so they're pretty much brand new. The tires have not gone flat during the whole month of sitting in my garage, so that's nice. It always gets annoying airing up tires on these every time you want to go ride it. Seats there, missing down there. We'll just throw a boat cushion or something in there for the time being. These steering wheels are so rad. We got the brake on that side, the throttle right here. A little gummy, but I do have a tool that can actually lubricate the cable going from here to your carburetor. So we'll go ahead and do that. Gonna pull the carburetor off right away and just kind of go through that, put the new seals and whatnot. I did order the kit for this carburetor, but I can tell you right now, it's just so much better to use the OEM original parts when it comes to these old Hondas. Now, the gaskets are one thing, you can put the new ones in there, but with the needle, the seat, the float, and your jet, your big thing is your jets. To try and use the original, clean them up. If you're messing with old vintage stuff, a very good investment, and they have different sizes, but ultrasonic cleaners work amazing for cleaning these old carburetors. I've used like Pine Sol, dilute it down a little bit with some water, throw that in there, and basically those machines just kind of vibrate and clean all the parts. Let's get the carb pulled off. Let's see if it's got some spark real quick, and go from there. Alright, carburetor done. Go ahead and take this over to the workbench and get it tore apart. And by workbench, I mean tire machine. Just kidding. I'm gonna find out just how bad this carburetor's gummed up. One thing I need to remember too, because this motor's a 2-stroke, is that I have to mix the gas before I go ahead and throw it in. Somebody's already did a number of these screws too, which is always real nice. They're so soft that they strip out pretty easy if you're not using the actual, rather than just what they call a Phillips screw. There's an actual set of screwdrivers that you can buy off Amazon for these to help prevent them from stripping out when you remove the bowls. Oh, there is a little fuel in there. Doesn't smell awful, but we definitely got some gunk in the bowls here. We're gonna go ahead and take all the jets out here, remove the float, basically just disassemble this carburetor as much as we possibly can. So that way when we put it in our ultrasonic cleaner, we can just make sure we got a nice, good, clean carburetor. Probably let it sit in there. Usually I like to run them a couple, 3 times in the ultrasonic cleaner. I think they're set to like 25, 30-minute timers. So go ahead, finish pulling this apart. Looks like we need a socket and a really tiny screwdriver. You can usually hold these up to the light too, check, see if they're actually clogged. What this is, the needle actually sits down this, and this is the first carburetor that I've had where you could pull out the sleeve that the needle sits in, and it's got all kinds of junk sitting on that. So, oh nice, we actually got all kinds of crud sitting in the fuel line. I'm gonna guess you know what happened is the original tank rusted, sent a bunch of sediment down into the carburetor, and She said, nope, not running anymore. You're going to want to go ahead and make sure that you pull all your screws out, get all the hoses off of it. I like to not send the O-ring, if there's an O-ring on a screw or anything like that, I don't like putting that in the ultrasonic cleaner. So that's why it's important to completely take apart everything. Side note to that, you have a couple screws here, one being your idle set screw and another one being kind of your air fuel mixture screw. You can look in the manual and typically find, you know, where it should be set. Another trick to do that is to screw it in very lightly, count your number of turns. That way, you know, when you go put it back together, okay, I roughly need about that many turns to basically set your base settings, and then you can adjust it from there once you have the machine running. We got the ultrasonic cleaner here, as I said. These come in a variety of sizes, small ones, big ones. I got this one because mostly all I deal with is like ATV carburetors and whatnot. I kind of wish I would have got the next size bigger, because then you could have fit like, you know, your Holly 750s and what have you. But we're gonna go ahead and throw all the parts in here. Right now I just kind of have it filled with water. And I got some D-germ here because, quite frankly, it's all I had laying around the shop, and I didn't feel like going to the dollar store to get some Pine Sol or anything else, so. Well, if this video doesn't go live, you know what caused it. So we're just gonna... That should do it. I mean, it's cleaner, disinfectant, so you know, makes a lot of sense. But this stuff works for everything, so we're gonna try it in the ultrasonic cleaner. Highly do not recommend this. But use what you got, I guess, at your own risk. Throw all the screws in there. Just everything. Cleans it up real nice. Bowl, let's get the gasket out of here just in case the one I bought's wrong, you know. Should I have checked it first? Probably. Just gonna leave it. Set that in there, and then we can submerge this and see why I kind of like to have a bigger one. It just barely sticks out of the water, but good enough. So all you do is crank the heat onto this thing. We'll turn it up. We got her at 160. We got 20 minutes on there. Oh, probably helps if you plug it in. Yeah, put the liquid in first and then plug it in. Didn't get shocked. That's great. It just sits there and vibrates and does its thing, heats it up, cleans it, calls it good. Let's go test the spark on the machine, see what we got. I also found a wiring diagram so you can kind of trace those loose wires and make sure that's all good to go. Alright, so I'll kind of show you. It's kind of difficult to see, but right down in there, you can see we got a bunch of wires spliced together. Why? I don't know. Who knows? Maybe somebody's trying to clean it up. Maybe they replaced the stator or something, so they had to splice them because, you know, aftermarket stuff never matches correctly with the OEM. So we're gonna go ahead, get this spark plug pulled out, touch it there, give it a couple rips. 13, 16, sit it. Really should have bought a new spark plug because, well, I bought everything else. Oh well. That'll probably be my determining factor. This plug is probably fouled out. Set that there and give her a pull, see if we got some spark. Nothing. News. Oh, okay, well, got something that's unplugged here. We got a green wire here that's not connected to anything. We got another splice down here not connected to anything. Alright, we got some house wiring. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut all the way back to right here. Get all this electrical tape off, because this is basically our stator wires here. These are the wires coming through that should go to your headlight switch and your on-off switch. Which we have a yellow wire here. Should probably your headlights, if I were to take a guess. Oh jeez. Corroded is all, half the wires are already split. Wow, this is bad. Cutting all the wires. So we got the wires, I believe, how they should be. And I'm actually putting the old coil back on. Now why am I doing that? Because there's a difference between newer coils and older ones. And I thought this was a 79. But so what I learned is that I found the frame number here. And the frame number is located right on the back, right there. And you can cross-reference that number and it basically tells you the year. So what I found out is that this frame is a 1983 frame, which happens to be a lot newer than what I was expecting. As the serial number on it is right on the back, right there on that little plate. And that says that it is a 1983 motor as well, which in 1983 they had the CDI box. In 1979 they had point systems, which changes everything. The wiring was all screwed up. Like I said, it had a CDI box on it and everything, which that's how it should be. But somebody went through and tried to rewire it or splice some wires, had some wires rubbed through. I don't know, but it was an absolute disaster. So we ended up cutting every wire out of the thing and redoing it all. And I still kind of have them all exposed. That looks bad, but I'm telling you, it's a lot worse. Well, she ain't running by midnight, but I'm not selling it. We finally got a spark on this thing. I can't believe it. I've been fighting this for the last hour. I got an ohm meter out, and I've just been ohming out the whole electrical system, trying to narrow down what is not working. So like I said, after an hour messing around, we checked the kill switch. Kill switch was working on both degrees. I was worried about that because it kind of wiggles in the steering wheel a bit, but it didn't seem to phase it too much. So that ruled out. The coil, we ohmed that out. That was kind of throwing some weird readings, and turns out the ground wire that's actually, the coil attaches to the frame, which should be grounded out there. And also there should be a wire. I grounded the coil to the frame, from the frame to the motor, and that seemed to help the coil out a lot as far as ohm readings go. And so we got that tested good, and then from there, what was next? Oh, you got two wires coming from your stator. You have a trigger wire, and then you got your AC ignition wire. And I believe it was AC ignition that was giving me no readings at all. I'm like, great, now I gotta replace the stator. Probably gonna be another 2 weeks before I can get parts in for this thing. Add it to the list of nothing I can get parts for right now, with fuel pumps and just LS swap parts. I've kind of forgot with the Blazer, and just everything keeps like just putting me to a halt on these videos. But turns out there was another splice on the bottom side of the motor that just came undone. Soon as I hooked that wire back up, put my ohm meter back on, boom, we're reading 200 ohms on it, which is perfect. They should read between 100 and 400, so right in the middle. Hook that wire back up, put that spark plug on the motor, pull the cord, good, awesome spark. So she's ready to go now. We're gonna go ahead and get some tape on the wires, loom it up. we gotta go get the carburetor assembled. So I guess the term running by 8 a.m., we can keep it. Put that on a shirt. Oh, I'm so pumped, but it's like 2 or 3 in the morning at this point. I know if I get this thing all together, I'm gonna have to go maybe make some neighbors mad, because I'm dying to drive this thing. But I'm so happy that we finally got some spark. Alright, look how dirty that water is. Yikes, but she's a little warm. You can kind of see how it's just cleaned the bottom side of the carburetor really good. More important part anyways. Oh yeah, it looks brand new in there. Let's go ahead and go get this on the table. I went ahead and grabbed some brake clean here. Gonna give it kind of one just last spray down. Alright, so I go ahead and I take some brake clean and I kind of just spray all the parts down one last time, just because you can have little sediment and dirt and everything else still be in the water with the parts in your ultrasonic cleaner. Just like that, we have a carburetor that hopefully works. Make sure that float's not sticking. Let's go ahead and throw it back on. Throw this on real fast. Throw a little bit of fuel in it. See if we can't get her to pop over. Alright, here goes nothing. This thing definitely has some compression. Oh, it's going. Oh, come on. It's right there. It wants to go. Whew. I heard it. I can smell it. I can taste it. Come on. Oh. I wonder. This would maybe help. Alright, so the next morning we finally got back from O'Reilly's with some new parts, new fuel line, hose clamps, new spark plug, and I really don't know what I'm doing here, so I brought the big guns in today. Playing with some race cars over there. Good old shop day for the kids, so I'll go ahead and throw a new fuel line on. Throw the fuel pump on, because I think that could be possibly an issue too while it's not getting fuel. And toss in that new spark plug and see what happens. Alright, the real moment of truth. I haven't compression tested this because this thing feels like it has insane compression. But from what I've read, people say that they can feel like they have compression when really it's too low for it to actually run. And we're getting spark. I've thrown some flammable stuff down the cylinder and it's still not starting. And we can see that we're getting some sort of fuel on the plug. It's getting a little wet. And it's a brand new plug. Still getting spark. I double checked that. We got the fuel pump on now, all the fuel lines, we got a full tank of gas, and it tries to start, but it just doesn't seem like it. The reading on that. hands are literally bleeding from trying to pull this over. Got the compression gauge on it. You're going to want to pull these over roughly 5 times. Try and get an accurate reading. We want to try to be somewhere in the vicinity of 120 to 130. Anything less than 120, it's probably likely not going to have enough compression to run. And then also, I feel like with this motor, and the fact that when you try to turn it over, it wants to move the wheels a bit. I think that's also going to be a factor in it. So I'm going to pull it 5 times, check it, and I'm going to pull it 10 times, another 5 times, and see what the reading is. So 60. It's not very good. Well, I don't think pulling it another 5 times is even going to get us over. We're not even at 60, we're like 58. Well, I believe I might have found the problem. And unfortunately, I think it's the head gasket. So over here on this side, kind of tough to see, but you can just barely see our head gasket in there, and it's wet all around there. Alright, we're not giving up quite yet today on this fine Sunday for this Odyssey. I got a hold of Mr. Junkyard Digs himself, and just so happens he has a spare head gasket just laying around for an Odyssey 250. And so we're going to pull this head off real quick, super easy. It's basically just 4 bolts on the top here, 5 bolts or something like that. Alright, moment of truth. She have a hole in the piston. Wow, that actually looks pretty good. Check this out though. Look how it almost looks like it was blown out there, and there. Inside here actually looks super clean, which is promising. We're going to go ahead and set that down on the ground there. And piston looks amazing. You know, honestly, I would say this looks rebuilt. Alright, after further inspection, we finally got the head gasket off here. And clearly, it's pretty much blown out on that end. A little bit right there. And it's got a copper head gasket in it, which is not factory. They should have came with like basically your paper gasket. And yeah, those were rusty. And after further inspection, this thing is punched to the moon. It's got an 80 over piston in that thing. Looks brand new. I don't think there's hardly any runtime on it. But as loose as the head bolts were, I don't know. I'm going to guess they got it together. They fired it up. It ran fine. But, you know, in the diesel world now, when you run like copper gaskets on this with like ARP studs, you need to retorque them after, you know, so many hours of runtime or miles or what have you. And I don't know, maybe the bolts just, maybe they didn't get tightened, or, you know, somebody got excited. Like I'm getting excited right now and about to bolt this back together with the old head gasket and just tighten it down. We went ahead, we got the head all cleaned up here. Now you might be asking, why would I go through all the time to do that? Here's my theory. If you got an air-cooled engine, you want to keep that engine and all the fins, don't look at that side, real nice and clean, so that way the air goes across it super slick, helps keep these motors cool. And for something like this, we're going for reliability here, so I'm going to go ahead and throw this rusty head gasket on and bolt it back on, see what happens. You see, the trick is here, you got to put the rusty side down. That helps it seal it better when it's on the block side versus the head side. That's okay. Give me some compression. bonus scene. I pulled it over there 5 or 6 times, and it went up to 100 psi. Don't let me down, Honda. Even with your rusty head gasket, I've seen your brothers and sisters run on no oil hopes and dreams and been rolled 100 times, and they always get you home. All right, let's go. Come on. I cannot believe it! Yeah! No way! This thing is an absolute ripper. It ran terrible at first. It was taking off, but it had absolutely no mid-range, no top end at all. And then after about 2 laps on the driveway, I noticed like it liked very little throttle. And all of a sudden I gave it and the shoe was all there. The acceleration with this CVT clutch is amazing. This thing is so much fun. We're gonna go rip this thing tomorrow afternoon, finish up the video, and what an absolute win. We put a rusty head gasket in. We had, after 6 pulls, 90 PSI, which was like 30 or 40 more immediately from what it was. And it could possibly be more, because sometimes it's tough to put a compression tester on a pull start motor. Sometimes you can't pull it over fast enough. That first one, I didn't really pull it all that much because I was so concerned about watching it. But that's a win in my book. Let's go take it out to Kevin's and see what it does out there. All right, finally made it out to Junkyard Digs. We're gonna do some laps in this thing.
Hey, do you want a seat bottom?
No, it's actually, you don't even notice it.
Okay, I was gonna say,
the tires are so squishy in this thing.
There's one right behind me that's just sitting there.
Nah, it's fine.
What a man. I wish mine did that. Sounded like she was bogging a bit.
A little bit. It started opening up a touch and then it...
Dude, you don't have an air filter.
I didn't have one. I forgot to order one.
I've got one. Well, I actually don't.
It's
probably breathing dirt and dying. That's what's happening.
And it's leaking fuel like crazy too.
Yeah, this is a good environment for it then.
I couldn't get I ordered the new carb rebuild kit for it, but I couldn't get the gasket to stay in that little groove on the bowl because they come in a circle and it's square. And I know you can spray some like sticky stuff so it holds it in place. But we'll try it again.
throttle, it responds about right.
Yep.
Anything more, it gets really loud in your ear, and it's pinging like crazy. So I think you need to open your main jet up a bunch. Do you know what notch it's on?
I haven't adjusted anything on it yet. Hey, look at the oil pouring out of the crankcase, or the gearbox here.
Oh, okay, it's not the engine. Thank
No.
God. It's must get a little warm or aerated or splashed around, probably. Well, that tank's kind of inconvenient for this.
Yeah, it's,
So-
I had to make it work.
Yeah, half throttle, up to half throttle feels nice, which is either it's bogging or it's getting lean at that point. But the pinging that made my ears hurt, I believe means you're lean as hell, so. Oh dude, this thing is set to the absolute leanest setting possible. I can't believe you didn't melt this down. We're gonna change that. Let's go.
Should be in the middle roughly, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot for the middle-ish. I went down 3 out of 5. Drive up?
No. I tried.
You believe? Oh my god. Weird, I was surprised.
There you have it, guys. We finally got this Odyssey back to the garage from Kevin's. It was running pretty good when I took it there. It wasn't running so good when I left, so I'm not sure what that deal was. If you want to see it again in a future episode where we're, powder coat everything, I'd really like to almost fully restore this to an extent. Fix the carburetor issues, get an air filter on the thing, and just do all those minor little details that, kind of wrap up a project like that. So leave a comment if you want to see that. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.